Hello everyone, this is part 4 of What If Deku Married May, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Outside of the daughter and anger management class, Bakugo walked out, hands in his pockets and his eyes glued to the road back home. Before he could take a couple steps there, however, he was stopped by a familiar face. Kirishima, he asked. What are you doing here? I need you to come with me for a moment, the redhead sighed. I need to go see Mina, and since you're able to somewhat keep her calm, I want you to be there so she doesn't freak out. Who the hell is Mina? Bakugo raised an eyebrow. Are you talking about Pinky? Yeah, that's her. You really don't know her name. Kirishima scratched his head. I mean, you're always keeping an eye on her. Especially since she became outed as a traitor. Just because I keep an eye on someone, doesn't mean I know everything about them. Bakugo folded his arms. But if this is about Pinky, then she must be getting into some trouble. Lead the way. Kirishima and Bakugo peeked out from behind a corner, and watched as they saw Mina dancing in place, her eyes closed and a wide smile plastered across her face, giving off an aura that she didn't have a care in the world. Okay, there she is, so what's the problem? Bakugo squinted his eyes. She's only dancing. Bakugo nearly gasped once he got a closer look, and saw a bird falling to the ground, a knife lodged right through its stomach. Mina, without missing a beat, grabbed the knife and spun before throwing it up again, causing another murdered bird to fall to the ground. Alright, now I see the problem, Bakugo cracked his knuckles. Let me handle this. Bakugo came out of hiding just as Mina got ready to throw another knife, and he unleashed an explosion loud enough to stop the girl on her tracks. Instead of throwing her knife, she kept it on her hand, and began spinning it around like it was a pen as she turned to face the explosive blonde. Well, hello there, Bakugo, she greeted without a hint of malice. How was your anger management class? It went well, but that's not important right now. Bakugo narrowed his eyes. What the hell do you think you're doing, Pinky? Isn't it obvious? I'm training, Mina rolled her eyes. I mean, why else would I be dancing around while throwing knives at birds like a lunatic? Bakugo gritted his teeth. And what the hell does dancing and killing birds have to do with the sports festival? Mina cackled. Do you really think I'm training for that? I don't need to train for that thing, I'll just wing it the whole way. No, I'm training for something much different, something I have come to accept as inevitable. Mina flashed a wide grin full of sharp teeth. I'm training to become the next Stain. Bakugo flinched, Kirishima gasped, and if there had been anybody else in that spot at that moment, they probably would have shared the shocked expressions. Let's not kid ourselves, Bakugo, I've doomed myself the instant that Swan-Winged Boy from Class 1B revealed my status as Stain's apprentice. Mina stopped spinning the knife and rubbed its handle against her cheek. What was his name? Deku, wasn't it? Bakugo growled. That's not his name. That's just what I call him. Interesting how you always tell him to never give up with that name, Mina smirked. I guess you do have an appreciation for him to an extent, don't you? Stop fucking around, Pinky, explain yourself. Bakugo gave the girl a pointing finger. Why are you dancing and killing birds? Ever heard of killing two birds with one stone? Mina began spinning the knife again. Well, by doing this little training routine, not only do I train my reflexes to further help me at the sports festival, but it also lets me have enough experience throwing knives so that, when the time comes, I can be just as good a hero killer as Stain himself. Mina eyed the corner. Speaking of stones, however, how long's gonna Kirishima be hiding over there? The redhead promptly came out of hiding. You knew I was here. Not at first, but then I saw your little horns poking out, and I know nobody else with horns like that. Mina shook her head. I mean, it's such a sad attempt at trying to stand out, but I guess I can understand why you'd do something so desperate. Mina flashed an ear-to-ear grin. After all, you were so hard to spot in a crowd before. Though briefly stunned by this statement, Kirishima quickly caught his composure and took a couple steps forward. Mina, please, you don't have to do this. The acidic girl stopped spinning her knife and frowned. I don't have to do what? Just because you were raised by the hero killer himself doesn't mean you have to follow in his footsteps. Kirishima stated, clenching his fist. You want to be a hero, right? Mina paused for a moment, and lowered her knife. I want to be a true hero, separate from the plagues of self-serving, glory-hound fakers that infest the market and give a bad name to heroism. Then, she aimed her knife at the boys, causing them to take a defensive stance. But now, I wonder, are either of you potential true heroes? Kirishima and Bakugo exchanged confused looks, but didn't drop the guard. First, Bakugo, Mina aimed her knife at the explosive blonde. What's your reason to become a hero? Isn't it obvious? To become number one. Suddenly, the knife was flung right at Bakugo, grazing his cheek as it narrowly missed him. By the time he realized what happened, his wound was bleeding. Overinflated egos are not a good thing for a hero to have. Mina grabbed another knife and aimed it at Kirishima. Now you, Kirishima. Honestly, you're one of the few people I care about in this cruel, unfair world of ours, so I'm going to give you an easy question. Kirishima narrowed his eyes, unsure of how to feel about the revelation. There's a person in danger and nobody else is coming to help them. Mina raised an eyebrow. What will you do? Save them, Mina flung her knife up, impaling a bird and causing it to fall right into her palm. She activated her quirk, and both the bird and knife melted into nothing. The correct answer wasn't a verbal one. Mina wiped off the melted stuff from her hand. Take the sports festival as a chance to prove you two really got what it takes to become true heroes. I'll be watching you from the sidelines, so don't fool around, alright? With her words spoken, Mina saved her hands on her pockets and began walking away, leaving the shaken boys behind. Fuck you. Mina stopped, and turned around, facing a furious Bakugo's glare. I'll fuck you up if you so much as do this shit again, you hear me? Mina looked unamused for a second, before she chuckled. Wow, Bakugo, I didn't know you felt that way. The boy backed away, raising an eyebrow and tilting his head as the girl added. Tell Dad I said hi, okay. Mina kept walking, this time undeterred, and once she was out of sight, Bakugo thought about her statement for a moment. And it only took him a second to figure out the implication. No fucking way. Midoriya and Hatsume sat down at the Midoriya's household's table, the former showing the black feather to the latter as she rubbed her forehead. So, let me get this straight. While I was working on both the gadget to keep Mina on a leash and your gadget to help you summon your wings, you got effectively asked out on a date by a black swan-like girl who hugged you and kept you suspended over the air. And she gave you one of her feathers before she left. Change, date, with, essentially marriage, and you got it. Midoriya glanced at the feather. I don't even know why she'd want to give me one of her feathers. What would it even do? Hatsume grabbed and showed her own feather. Well, you gave me this feather, and it works as a two-way ticket to knowing how we're feeling, I think. The feather glowed when I sensed you were in danger, and you said you also sensed me feeling upset, so maybe this girl. Momo Yaoyorozu. Yeah, her. Maybe her feathers have the same powers. Midoriya shook his head. I think the only reason the feather worked like it did was because it was part of my quirk. Yaoyorozu, however, got the black wings from a mutation she inherited. Her quirk is something entirely different. By the way, Mina told you what it was, right? Yeah, it's called creation, and it lets her create things from her body using her lipids. Hatsume folded her arms. She also quipped something about how she was lightweight enough to fly, yet heavyweight enough to make her quirk useful. Because apparently that gives her more lipids to work with. Midoriya hummed, but before the conversation could go on, Melissa knocked the door and chirped from outside, Are you guys for the sports festival? Hatsume and Midoriya exchanged excited smiles, and they bid farewell to Inko before they left the house, Midoriya equipping Hatsume's gadgets before doing so. Once outside, the trio walked to the train station as the Hatsume was the one to continue the conversation. So, you actually managed to get an outfit that fit you, Melissa. Yep. And I was so lucky that I got it before the festival, otherwise I might have been forced to go with the standard uniform. Melissa scratched the back of her head and smiled. I mean, can you imagine me walking out there with an undersized gym uniform? I'd probably die of embarrassment. You and me both, Midoriya chuckled before he turned to Hatsume, whose smile had slightly faltered. Oh, right. I'll also get to show everyone the boots you made for me, Hatsume. I'm aware, and I'm pretty happy about it. Hatsum crouched down and looked at the boots themselves. Just remember that these babies might be able to give you propulsion, but they're not indestructible. I believe they can take about 5 tries before I have to readjust them. Noted, thanks Hatsum. Midoriya looked down. Now, how do these work again? You crouch down, then press a button, and once you jump, they should take you off the ground. Got it. Speaking of Hatsum, you're going to participate too, right? Melissa asked, tilting her head. The sports festival, I mean. Do you have any strategy? Hatsum thought back to her meeting with Mina, and a look of hatred formed on her face before she shook it off, and answered with a wide smile, I'm going to do a sales pitch for all the inventions I've made for the festival. That does sound like something you'd do, Midoriya chuckled. I bet you must be in bliss being able to see all colors again. Hatsum put a hand on her chest and smiled. Yeah, I'm quite happy for that. Did the feather on my head tell you that? The smile on your face told me that. Speaking of feathers, Melissa put a hand on Midoriya's shoulder. Is that one of Yaoyorozu's feathers? Midoriya looked down, and saw that he still had the black feather in his hand. He quickly put it on his mess of a hairstyle and answered, yeah, she's one of your classmates, right? Yeah, and I was a little worried she might have done something weird while she was seeing you. Melissa put a hand on Midoriya's shoulder. She didn't do anything weird, did she? Midoriya glanced at the hand, and taking a deep breath, he answered, you'll have to ask her. What? No stuttering. No stammering. Hatsum asked, raising an eyebrow and folding her arms. Spill the beans, how long did you mentally prepare yourself for this moment? Midoriya looked at Hatsum incredulously for a moment, before he began laughing, followed by Melissa and eventually Hatsum joining in as well. Hello, everybody. A voice spoke through the festival's loudspeakers. This is your announcer for the sports festival, Present Mike. And helping me hype us up is none other than one of the big three herself, Nedirehadou. Hi everyone. A cheerful female voice spoke. It's so exciting to be here. Hey, Mike, what am I supposed to do? Am I getting paid for this? Can I scream as loudly as you? You can try, but I highly doubt you will, little one. Present Mike laughed. Anyhow, our participants are getting prepared, so just be patient. In 10 minutes or less, we'll start the festival with a bang. Start the festival with a bang, huh? A tiny figure walked through the crowd right outside the stadium, and stopped in the middle of it to look at the jumbotron showing the time left before the festival started. Things really haven't changed since I was at UA. At Class 1B's break room, Midoriya stood close to a wall, staring at the black feather Yaoyorozu had given him. Try as he might, he couldn't help but wonder if there was more to the feather than meets the eye, just like his own feather when Hatsum explained it to him. Because yes, that totally happened. Still looking at that feather, are you? Midoriya turned around, and saw both Kendo and Monoma approaching him, the former sporting a smile while the latter had a concerned frown. Yeah, I guess I can't help but wonder why she gave this to me, Midoriya said, placing the feather back on his head. I mean, the feather I gave Hatsum lets me know how she's feeling and alerts her when I'm in danger, but that's because it's part of my quirk. Yaoyorozu's feather, however, is from her inherited mutation, not her quirk. How do you know that for sure? Monoma folded his arms. For all we know, her quirk could let her create feathers and this one could be a result from that. No, that's not her quirk. Hatsum told me it's called creation and it lets her create things from her body, using her lipids. Midoriya took a deep breath. Although, granted, that's probably not the thing we should be focusing on right now. Yeah, right now, we need to focus on who'll get to be Midoriya's lover, Tokage giggled. I call dibs. Shiozaki slapped Tokage with her vines. What we should be actually focusing on right now, is on strategies to pass the festival. With the heavy powerhouses that Class 1A has this year, it'll be even harder for our class to stand out, let alone survive past the first or second event. Shiozaki, I'm pretty sure I'm the one who's supposed to be obsessed with surpassing Class 1A, Monoma folded his arms and raised his eyebrow. Why are you showing interest in trying to surpass them all of a sudden? Because that black swan girl Midoriya met didn't give me a good first impression, Shiozaki eyed the rest of her class. And besides, the purpose of this festival, from what I remember, is to show the pro heroes our potential as sidekicks. How are we supposed to do that when the other classes get the attention? I still think it's kinda weird to hear something so competitive come out of your mouth, Komori remarked. But she does have a point, Monoma pointed out. And in fact, I did have an idea to let most of us get past the first round. Midoriya smiled and put the feather back on his head as he asked. What's your idea? The feather serves as a little gift in order to have a piece of me with him during the festival, Yaoyorozu explained to an unimpressed Uraraka. That way, I can keep an eye on him and he can keep an eye on me. It'll be like we'll get to know each other better. I mean, he could always just, I don't know, throw the feather away, right? Uraraka argued. I mean, for all intents and purposes, it's just a cosmetic trinket. That's where you're wrong, Uraraka. You see, that feather was one of many I created with my creation quirk, Yaoyorozu demonstrated by plucking one of her feathers, then creating a new one in the spot where the feather had been ripped from. It has the same properties as Midoriya's feather to his protectorate. Uraraka raised an eyebrow. And how do you know about those properties? I don't, I just assume the properties based on Midoriya's surprising similarity to the Swan Knight. Uraraka rolled her eyes, and she left Yaoyorozu's side to walk up to Melissa, who entered the room with a gym uniform that actually fit her. Wow, Melissa, that looks good on you. Uraraka chirped as she ran up to the girl. How did you manage to get a gym uniform that fit you? I asked Principal Nezu if he could make me a gym uniform my size, and he complied without too much hassle, Melissa responded, scratching the back of her head. All he asked in return was that I didn't blow up the uniform or something by the end of the sports festival. I know how that feels, Yaoyorozu sighed, spreading her wings slightly. I've broken a fair deal of gym uniforms just trying to get my wings out. Is that why you're wearing a tank top instead of the top of the uniform? Kaminari asked. Yaoyorozu turned to Kaminari, tilting just enough to reveal her tank top read, yes, around the stomach. Okay, point taken, Kaminari rolled his eyes. At least it's not nearly as suspicious as your hero costume. Yaoyorozu smacked Kaminari in the head with one of her wings as Melissa brought up an interesting question. You wanna be a hero for money? Yaoyorozu turned, and approached the duo, primarily Uraraka's side as the brunette scratched her head and answered, why yeah, something like that. You see, my parents haven't had much economic stability since my dad's construction company hasn't got much work, so I want to become a pro hero so I can use the money I earn to give them some stability. But my family can already give you enough money to do just that, Yaoyorozu pointed out. Uraraka sternly narrowed her eyes. I don't want to put them in more debt, Yaoyorozu. Seeing Uraraka's increasingly angry expression, Yaoyorozu turned to Melissa and asked, sir, Melissa, what's your motivation for becoming a hero? Huh, yeah, I'd like to know that too. Uraraka added, immediately changing her mood to a happy one. I mean, you were already famous as an inventor in Island. Having you as a hero is cool and all, but what motivated you to do it? Melissa closed her mouth and scratched her chin. She obviously couldn't tell them her reason to become a hero was that she wanted to follow in All Might's footsteps, but she also hadn't thought up a cover story for it yet, so she was kinda stumped as to what to say in that moment. It's okay if you don't want to tell us too, Uraraka added, waving her hands. I understand if it's something personal. Well, your motivation sounded pretty personal too, and yet you told her anyway, Yaoyorozu pointed out. Yeah, but in my case, the most I would get from people is that they'd see me as a little greedy, Uraraka folded her arms. Now, imagine if I had a different motivation, like wanting revenge on a person that bullied me when I was younger. Unless that person was Bakugo, then yeah, that doesn't sound like something you should just say out loud. I heard that, ugly duckling. Yaoyorozu gasped. How rude. Speaking of motivations, what's your motivation to be a hero, Yaoyorozu? Kaminari suddenly inquired. You're rich, you have connections, an incredible quirk, it sounds like you could deal without being a hero. Perhaps, but I have to prove something to someone, Yaoyorozu sighed, and this was enough to break Melissa out of her trance. You see, I inherited my wings and neck from my ancestors on my father's side of the family. He wanted me to cut, or at least clip, my wings since he thought I'd have enough trouble with my quirk. So you think becoming a pro hero is going to convince him that you can use both your wings and your quirk? Kaminari raised an eyebrow. I don't know, it doesn't sound like those two things correlate. My father's a pro hero. Okay, now I see the connection. And as the trio kept talking, Melissa separated from them. She knew Uraraka would demand an answer from her eventually, but for now, she decided to focus on what Yaoyorozu said. So Yaoyorozu got her mutation from her father's side of the family, and he also happens to be a pro hero. It wasn't long before she got an idea. Wait, is Yaoyorozu? Hatsune finished taking out a set of gadgets and immediately got to work on adjusting them with what little time she had left before the start of the festival. Senior. Hatsune stopped and turned around, spotting Mineta right behind her. Oh hey, Mineta, what's up? I was just wondering what's all that stuff you got there. Mineta tilted his head and scratched his chin. Are those gadgets for the sports festival? That's it, my sweet little junior. Hatsune proudly boasted. What a coincidence, I too built something for the festival. Mineta boasted in return. Although, admittedly, I only built it for the tournament portion. Then, without warning, his confidence plummeted. That's assuming I get to the tournament portion of the festival, though. You will. Hatsune gave the purple dwarf a thumbs up. As long as you keep your head in the game, you'll be fine. That's a pretty optimistic way to think about it. The duo turned around, and saw a guy with a mess of purple hair and insomniac-like eyes enter the room. He looked at the two of them for a second, before he approached a wary Hatsune. You're from general education, right? Hatsune put her hands on her hips. What brings you to the support room? Well, I heard that you have a connection to a member of the hero course, Shinsu smiled. Is that true? Yeah, is that so? Suddenly, the sound of bells rang as Hatsune's eyes turned blank, with Shinsu smirking as he said. When I snap my fingers, you will tell me about the hero course student you know and what gadgets you made for him. Shinsu snapped his fingers, and Hatsune responded in monotone. His name is Izuku Midoriya. The only gadget I made for him were a pair of booster boots to let him access his wings more easily. Go back to normal. Shinsu snapped his fingers again. Hatsune blinked twice, going back to normal the first time, and grabbed her head as Shinsu headed for the door. Thanks for the information. Hatsune covered her mouth as the guy closed the door, and she turned to Mineta, who looked just as stunned as her as he waved his hands and bowed down, apologizing for not doing anything. However, Hatsune only cared about one thing. What the hell just happened? Alright everybody, you've been patient for long enough. Time to begin the sports festival. The audience roared in cheerful joy. That's the kinda audience I like. Present Mike chuckled. Now, may all the first years head into the stadium. The first years from the hero courses, management courses, support courses, and general education walked out into the sunlight, the audience cheering loudly as they all formed lines in front of the arena, some taking the moment to look around the scenery. Wow, there's so many first years, and almost none of them look anywhere near as tall me. Melissa mused. Why was I cursed with so much height? I knew there'd be a lot of people, but I didn't think there'd be this much, Midoriya whispered, Monoma nodding in agreement. We're gonna have to be extra cautious. Hatsune's eyes first fell on the hero course, where she saw Mina staring at her with a sly smile. Her uniform, while identical to the rest of the students, now sported a color scheme of black and red, rather than blue and white. When she diverted her sight elsewhere, she spotted the insomniac-looking guy from general education stealing a glance at her, then turned back to the arena as if nothing happened. Great, rather than dealing with one jerk, she'd have to deal with two. Now, the student with the top score on the entrance exam will say some words. Neja chirped. Could Katsuki Bakugo head into the arena, please? Midoriya felt a chill go down his spine. Of course Bakugo would have the top score on the entrance exam, but then again, he was Bakugo. There was no way he could do anything involving speaking and not inflate his own ego at best, insult everybody around him at worst. Then again, he had been acting calmer than usual lately, so maybe this wouldn't be so bad. Oh hey, he was already talking. Normally, I would just up and tell all of you that I'm going to win this thing, but honestly, that alone wouldn't do my feels justice. So, let me say a couple of things. If Midoriya could give anybody a piece of advice right now, it would be to brace themselves. This thing has one purpose and one purpose only, besides letting us beat the shit out of each other. Bakugo pointed at the pro heroes. It's so the pro heroes over there can see which one of us has the best potential out of everyone, Whether that's the best use of our quirks, the best strategy, the best defense, or yes, even the best at beating the shit out of other people, that's the thing everyone is looking for in this festival. He's not necessarily wrong, a Greenit Pro heroine said with a chuckle. As for you, extras, don't you dare hold back. Everyone has to give it their all in order for this to have any sort of meaning. Bakugo snapped at the teenagers. Nobody cares if you have issues with your quirk, or you father or whatever. Todoroki and Yaoyorozu flinched at the second part. In this festival, the only thing meaningful you can do, is something that we all have to do. We either go, all out, or all home. And if anybody here isn't willing to use their quirk to their utmost potential, you might as well pack your things and leave. Everybody else. Bakugo clenched his fist and raised it as high as he could. Plus ultraaa. He dropped the mic afterwards, and before the audience and students roared, he said, with an amused smile. That is all. Well, that was an amazing speech from KATSUKI Bakugo, everyone. What do you think? HADOU. He has a way with words, that's for sure. He sure does, doesn't he? Now, time to begin the first event of the festival, the one to surely thin the students' numbers to only the best of the best. All Might sighed at the statement. He couldn't help but feel nostalgic about the situation. Several years ago he had stood in that same field, with the pro heroes having their eyes glued to him, and now he was part of the pro heroes, whose eyes were glued to the generation as whole. Though something told me that, one way or another, those eyes would be glued to a certain Melissa sooner or later. Hello there, Toshinori. All Might coughed up some blood as he turned to see the tiny guy sitting next to him. Gran Torino. What are you doing here? Melissa's going to participate, isn't she? Gran Torino folded his arms. I wanna see how she's managed herself until now, and see how far she gets. So, you don't think she'll win the festival? All Might asked, wiping the blood off his cheek. HMPH, I trained you to the same manner, and you never won the festival either, did you? Gran Torino turned back to the field. Granted, Melissa is different from a numbskull like you, I'll give you that. This also felt nostalgic, but for the wrong reason. But let's wait and see what tricks she pulls out of her sleeves first. She has quite the competition, after all. Among the students getting prepared for the first event, the obstacle course, Class 1B gathered together with Midoriya in the middle. Alright, everybody know what we have to do. Work together, Hiru shouted as he raised his fist. Or at least, do it in a way to make some of us get to the next round. More specifically, me, Midoriya, Kendo, Shiozaki, and Tokage, Monoma spoke. Anybody else reaching the next round is obviously beneficial, but those 5 are especially important if we want Class 1B to win the sports festival. To show off Class 1A, I assume. Tokage scoffed. No, to show off that Class 1B has just as much potential to be heroes as Class 1A. Kendo stated. Besides, I'm sure we all know there's at least one Class 1A student we definitely need to show a lesson. The whole class turned to face Yaoyorozu, who was clasping her hands and taking deep breaths, psyching herself for the upcoming course. She made the mistake of messing with one of our classmates, and that very same classmate's going to teach her you don't mess with 1B. Monoma turned to Midoriya and flashed a confident smile. Isn't that right, Midoriya? Let's do this. The boy nodded, and he shook hands with Midoriya, copying his quirk in the process. Meanwhile, with the support course, Hatsune finished placing the final piece of her Hatsu armor, as she called it, before she stole a glance at Midoriya talking some strategy with Kendo and Monoma. Somewhere nearby, she also spotted Mineta constantly writing the kanji for courage before swallowing it. Are you nervous? Hatsune turned around, and sporting her usual wide smile, Mina was right next to her. Mina, this is the first time you're going to be exposed to the pro-hero world, Hatsune, Mina smirked as she brushed Hatsune's hair. I sure hope you're ready for whatever comes next. Hatsune looked angry for a moment, then giggled. What's so funny? Oh, nothing, Hatsune slyly smiled. I just find it so funny how scared you are of me. Mina narrowed her eyes, abandoning any semblance of fake friendship. What are you talking about? Haven't you heard? More often than not, intimidation is a tactic used by people who are afraid of the person that are intimidate. Hatsune narrowed her eyes. And you have to be quite afraid of me to do it so consistently. Hatsune walked away, leaving a baffled Mina behind. Finally, Melissa finished doing some stretching when she spotted Todoroki approaching Yaoyorozu. Once the two met, they began talking rather calmly and amicably. Yaoyorozu. Todoroki. Do you have issues with your father, too? Yaoyorozu winced. I saw you flinch when Bakugo mentioned daddy issues earlier. No, I love him. Yaoyorozu twiddled her fingers. I have issues with what he thinks about my mutation. And as the duo kept talking, Melissa couldn't help but think about her own father, David Shield. She lowered her head and took a deep breath. Dad, if you're watching me right now. She raised it with a determined expression. Cheer me on. And it's time to begin. The first obstacle of the obstacle course will be a long trek towards incoming danger. Are you sure that's the first obstacle? Whatever do you mean? Hadu pointed at the entrance to the course, and it was rather evidently clogged by the large mass of students trying to get through. They tried pushing and shoving each other, but this didn't help them at all. After a few seconds, both Midoriya and Monoma flew high above the mass, carrying Tokage, Shiozaki, Kendo, and Tsunotori, the last one manipulating her flying horns so they'd carry Tetsu, Komori, Subaraba, and Hananuki. Izuku Midoriya and Neitomonoma from Class 1B have passed the mass of students. Watch their majestic wings flap victoriously to the first obstacle. Soon after, Hatsum and Yaoyorozu flew as well, the latter carrying Todoroki, followed by a giggling Mina jumping on top of the students until she reached the other side. And right behind him is Mahatsume with what looks like an armor, Momo Yaoyorozu with her wings and Shototodoroki in tow, and Mina Ashido using the students as platforms. Finally, a yellow light flashed before Melissa burst through the mass, sending several students flying away as she braked, yellow electricity crackling through her body. And for the grand finale we have Class 1A's bowling ball, Melissa Shield. Melissa flashed a pouty face at the announcer before lowering her power, and running after the other students. The rest of her classmates came running as well, just in time for the first obstacle to make its presence known. And now, for the first obstacle for real, we have a certain old friend ready to give the hero course a robotic fist bump. That's right, it's the 0 pointers. How did we not see them sooner? Shiozaki exclaimed. Doesn't matter, Midoriya said as he dropped Tokage. Kendo, think we can try that thing we did again? Kendo looked at her burnt arm, and rubbed it, wincing at the resulting pain. I don't think so. Just then, the 0 pointer headed straight for Midoriya, who braced for impact before the giant robot was halfway frozen into an iceberg. He looked down, and saw the source was none other than Todoroki, who breathed as he ran past the frozen robots. And Shototodoroki has surpassed the first obstacle on his own. I've heard about giving someone the cold shoulder, but this is ridiculous. Got any comments? Hadou. How did he do that? When did he do that? How cold must it be down there? Oh, how I wish I had him for a classmate, there's so many things I wanna ask him. You and me both, sweetie. Now let's see what happens next. The giant robot began tumbling down towards the students, but before it could fall on top of any of them, it disintegrated to dust, which flew off into the sky as Melissa's voice called. Thanks, Shimura. Midoriya and Monoma turned to the ground, and saw a guy with black hair and silver tips turn to Melissa, and flash both a confident grin and a thumbs up. Unbelievable. Tenko Shimura of Class 1A has DESINTEGRATED the robots frozen by SHOTOTODOROKI. Was this Class 1A's plan? Could this have been a combination attack all along? Tenko Shimura, Gran Torino repeated. Hey, Toshinori, isn't that the brat you rescued all those years ago? All Might formed a little smile. Yeah, that's him all right. Midoriya grabbed Tokage again and he and Monoma flew forward across the frozen landscape, their classmates following close behind. It didn't take them long to reach the next obstacle. The first obstacle was brute forced, but such a tactic won't work this time. Welcome Alter, the fall. Ha, bet they didn't expect some of us could fly. Monoma proudly boasted as he flew ahead of Midoriya. Come on, Midoriya, let's clear this one. Monoma, look out. The copy boy barely managed to see what was ahead of him before he bumped into someone. He bumped so hard, he not only dropped to the ground, dissipating the wings in the process, but also sent whoever he had crashed into towards the abyss. Taking a look at the edge revealed the person to be Mina, who had a bored look as she fell. Oh no, someone has fallen into the fall. But don't worry, instant death doesn't await them at the end of it. It doesn't. The pink girl sighed and folded her arms. Well, consider me disappointed. Suddenly, a pink flash of light snatched Mina and brought her to the other end of the fall, just in time for her to witness Yaoyorozu, Midoriya, and several more students cross the line into the third obstacle already. She, however, was too stunned at seeing who had saved her. It was Hatsume, who extended a hand towards her with a stern expression. Why? Mina hissed and grabbed the hand. Why did you save me? We have a beef to finish, Mina, Hatsume stated sternly as she helped the pink girl stand up. The only one who's going to get you out of the festival will be me, you got it? Mina smirked. Who's afraid of who, now? Rolling her eyes, Hatsume flew off, and Mina followed soon after. And now comes the third and final obstacle of the obstacle course. This one is going to blow your mind, that's for sure. Welcome to the landmines. Yet another obstacle that Midoriya could easily fly past. It was becoming more and more clear that the school hadn't taken into account that some students could fly, namely he and Yaoyorozu, the latter flying past him shortly after. Before he flew as well, though, something at the ground caught his interest. Not only was Mina dancing across the battlefield while somehow dodging all the mines, but Melissa was doing something similar, powering both her arms and her legs. She put one on the ground, leapt high, landed on one foot, jumped again, rinse and repeat. She also seemed to have something on her back, but what it was, Midoriya had no idea. Midoriya, Yaoyorozu called, breaking the boy out of his trance. I know I shouldn't butt in the rival class's business, but get a move on. Or, what's wrong, Yaoyorozu? Tokich cooed, reminding Midoriya that he still had both her and Shiozaki as passengers. Jealous that you're not mates looking at another girl. Yaoyorozu's cheeks glowed a bright red, and she flew off in a huff, leaving a satisfied Tokich behind. Knew it. I think you just got on her hit list, Shiozaki pointed out. Totally worth it. Now come on, let's go. Midoriya nodded, and he began to speed towards the stadium, which was looking closer than ever. Hi Midoriya. The boy turned around, and saw Hatsume flying by his side, an amused smile on her face. So, who are the pretty ladies you got there? Midoriya blushed. They're just C classmates. They need to reach the next round, so I'm carrying them. Are you jealous? Tokage smirked. No, at least not that much. Hatsume rolled her eyes. After all, I've been closer to Midoriya for a long while than either of you. Hatsume, we've even taken baths together. You're gonna make me lose my wings. In more ways than one, Shiozaki said, her tone clearly conveying disapproval as Tokage burst laughing. Hatsume let out a little giggle as well, and before he knew it, Midoriya was laughing as well. They began speeding up to the end of the landmine-filled terrain, and they stopped laughing, getting ready to race each other to the stadium. And then Hatsume's armor got struck by something, causing it to malfunction. Hatsume. The gadgeteer screamed as she fell down, and landed face first on one of the mines, causing it to blow up and send her back into another mine, which blew up, and so on and so forth. Eventually, she landed on an empty hole from an already set-off explosion, and she twitched in pain as a certain acidic girl ran past her. Midoriya noticed Mina's malicious smirk, and he quickly put two and two together. And just in time, too, since he reached the end of the landmine right then and there. Midoriya, Shiozaki asked as she jumped off his back. Are you okay? Midoriya dropped Tokage onto the ground, and just as Shiozaki ran to her side, Midoriya's eyes flashed orange before he flew right back into the minefield. He's going back in there. Shiozaki exclaimed, wrapping one of Tokage's arm on her shoulder. What does he think he's doing? Don't you get it, Shiozaki? Tokage chuckled. He's going to his mate's help. Oh, it looks like Midoriya has decided to head back to the danger zone. Why would he do that? He was already out of it. Looks like we'll have to watch and see. Midoriya's eyes slowly became completely orange, and his hair and skin became chalk white as he unleashed a thunderous roar, flying right past Mina as the pink girl recognized the form. Though thankfully, the transformed winged humanoid didn't seem to notice her. And then he snapped a glare at her, freezing her in place for a second. Mina continued dancing around the minefield after, but a certain sense of dread now coated her movements. Back with Midoriya, the winged boy stopped in front of the downed Hatsum, his form shielded her from the sunlight as she opened her eyes and turned to the shadowed boy. Izuku. He slowly leaned towards her, grabbed her, and lifted her in a bridal carry before flying off, leaving the broken armor behind. I can't believe this, folks. IZUKUMIDORIYA of Class 1B has taken the time to grab the downed May HATSUME from the support course. How romantic. Indeed, but that will have to be focused on another time, because we're about to have our first place pretty soon, ladies and gentlemen. The first student back on the stadium is. A blur of yellow lighting went through the shadowed hallway and stopped to catch her breath, as her form was revealed, with Present Mike's thunderous voice. Melissa Shield from Class 1A. The stadium roared with cheers as Melissa caught her breath, and, with the slow realization that she was the first student back, a smile formed on her face. And literally right behind her, on second place, is Minoru Mineta from the support course. Melissa winced and turned to her back, spotting the grape-headed boy laughing victoriously to himself. I can't believe that worked. Mineta jumped off and flashed a pair of peace signs. I honestly thought it would fail, but I'm so glad it didn't. Then he turned around, and saw a baffled Melissa looking down at him. Oh, sorry for using you like that, but I didn't have any chance of going to the next round otherwise. No, yeah, that I can guess, but. Melissa raised an eyebrow. When did you latch onto me? I latched to your back moments before you bowling balled the mass of students at the start. That early. And on third place we have Momo Yaoyorozu, carrying with her the fourth place, Ochakouraraka. Yaoyorozu flew down and released Uraraka, sighing as she turned to the entrance, where several other students were flowing in. Good. At least I reached third place. I'm happy for you, Momo. Uraraka chirped, putting a hand on her shoulder. But things are only going to get more dangerous from here on out. Are you sure you're ready for that? Oh, I'm more than ready, and then a familiar figure entered. But I don't know if he is. Midoriya landed on the ground, and both his transformed state and wings vanished, leaving Hatsum to look at him in his base form. Are you okay, Hatsum? Yeah, the mines weren't strong enough to cause bodily damage, Hatsum promptly pouted. But my Hatsu armor got utterly trashed. Now I'm gonna have to build it from scratch. Then she thought about it, and smiled. Wait, I'm gonna have to build it from scratch. Yay. Midoriya chuckled until he heard a familiar voice call his name, and he promptly saw his fellow Class 1B classmates, mostly Monoma and Kendo, approaching him. And Monoma didn't look very pleased. Why did you nearly risk your placement there, Midoriya? You were this close to reaching the top 3. Don't be like that, Monoma, Kendo said, holding back the desire to chop him in the neck. He managed to get Shiozaki and Tokage into the next round, and you did the same with me and Pony. Sure, some of her passengers didn't get in, but we still got some numbers to our advantage. Yeah, and what's better is that the plan worked. Tetsu chimed in. Now we just need a new plan for the next round, and the tournament, and we'll be set. Before we do that, though, here's a question, Midoriya, Kendo raised an eyebrow. How much longer are you planning to hold that girl? Midoriya looked back at the Hatsum in his arms, and as he put her down, he got an idea. Everyone, this is Mei Hatsum. She's the girl I took under my protection. So that explains the feather on her head, Monoma remarked, reaching for said feather. The feather glowed white and sent a spark right at his finger. Ow. Did that thing just shock my finger? Well, if we wanna be honest, everybody wants to shock you at some point, Komori quipped. Class 1B laughed, and as they did, Hatsum decided to separate from them and head back to see how many people from her own course had managed to get in. So far, she managed to spot Mineta, and prayed he didn't get in trouble with Melissa. Are you Midoriya's protectorate? Hatsum stopped on her tracks and turned to see Yaoyorozu standing nearby, arms folded behind her back and her wings slightly spread. Hatsum looked behind her, then turned back to Winged Girl and pointed at herself, raising a confused eyebrow. Yes, you. Are you his protectorate? Did he put you under his protection? Hatsum reached for her feather and showed it. Well, he gave me this feather, which lets us know if the other's in danger. Does that count? Yaoyorozu giggled. So you are his protectorate. I've heard a decent deal about you. She walked towards Hatsume, making the difference in their heights that more evident, and she added. Now, let me make one thing clear, protectorate, being under his protection, isn't the same as being under his. The girl paused and blushed, shaking her head as she quickly cut to the chase. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is, a mate and a protectorate can be completely different. You may be his protectorate, but you won't be his mate, that'll be me, got it? Ah, sure, I guess. Good. Now, if you don't want to get in trouble, just keep the relationship between you two and protectorate, alright? It's better for everyone that way. Yaoyorozu turned around, and walked back to her classroom. Left behind, however, was not a Hatsume that recognized this as a battle of affection, but a Hatsume who was having a hard time processing what had just happened. What the hell was that all about? And then she spotted a certain mess of purple hair, and decided to focus on that. Well, the first event's over and it looks like young Melissa's still in the game, huh? All Might asked proudly as he watched Melissa help a breathing Tenko stay balanced. Getting a little cocky now, aren't we, Toshinori? Gran Torino laughed heartedly. This was just a mere taste of what's to come. If she manages to pass the next event, then you can feel confident. Then, the miniature hero scratched his chin. By the way, has the festival finally fixed a second event, or is it still randomly selected? Randomly selected, All Might sighed. But, no matter what event's picked. All Might smiled as Melissa went to help Mina stand up, the pink girl still shaken by the glare Midoriya shot at her earlier. I'm confident she'll pass it. Alright, hope you all liked that little break, because we're back in action. Any thoughts? HADOU. I have no idea what's coming next, and that only makes me more excited. That's the spirit. Let's hope the students down there have the same drive as you. All students remaining lined up, and from what could be seen, most of the students were an even split between Class 1A and 1B, with 2 from the support course and 1 from general studies. There was also a very tiny white-haired girl around the lines, but Midoriya couldn't for the life of him figure out which course she belonged to. Geez, that last event certainly thinned out the numbers, Tenko remarked, scanning the lines with slight concern. How many more can be taken out now? Well, from what I remember, Mina hummed. The last event's a one-on-one tournament of 16 students, so. Melissa jabbed Mina on the neck, and grabbed her as she collapsed. We're gonna be fine, Shimura. I sure hope so. Meanwhile, with 1B, Midoriya stole a glance at the talk between Melissa and Tenko, before he turned to see Hatsume standing uneasy alongside Mineta and Shinsu, the former glaring at the latter as if to warn him not to do anything. Hey, Midoriya, stay focused, Monoma said, snapping his fingers. This event is critical. We need to get at least you, Kendo, Tetsu, and Shiozaki to the final tournament round. Huh, me? Midoriya asked incredulously. I mean, I understand why I needed to pass during the last event. I was carrying Tokage and Shiozaki, but why am I included in the lineup? Kendo's arm might still be injured somehow, but she can still pack a punch. Tetsu's quirk makes him a decent tank and he's pretty strong, so as long as he doesn't face off against someone with a stronger quirk, he'll be fine. Shiozaki's vines are extremely versatile and fast, so as long as she doesn't face fire or ice. Midoriya blinked once and shook his head, earning a baffled look from the copycat. Midoriya, you can fly. Oh right, he could do that, couldn't he? And furthermore, with the boots Hatsume made for him, he didn't have to worry about the jumping requirement. And going from what he had seen so far, there weren't many people who could fly as well, except Yaoyorozu. He stole a glance at the winged girl from 1A's line, and once she noticed him, she shyly blushed and avoided eye contact. Well, that was certainly not the reaction he was expecting. Okay, how about Hatsume over at the other line? She spotted him and smiled, waving hello before she turned back to wait for the unveiling of the next event. Yup, that was more to Midoriya's liking. And now, everybody turned back to the stadium, and they saw the R-rated heroine, Midnight, standing right next to a wheel with several events written on it. Let's decide the next event. She spun the wheel, and as everybody waited for the wheel to stop, some students talked among each others. Where the heck did she come from? Monoma inquired. It's Midnight, don't question it. Kendo answered. Is that outfit really appropriate for a hero? Shinsu asked, activating no bells. If you think that's provocative, you should have seen her original costume, Mineta spoke, trying to hold back his laughter. It was so controversial it created a new law. Midnight cracked her whip, and the murmurs stopped just in time to see the wheel stop, and point at an event simply titled, Free for All. Free for All, the students asked in unison. The event rules are simple. 2 third years from UA will wear headbands on their bodies, 8 apiece, and those who manage to snatch the headbands go to the final event. And once you snatch a headband, you'll go back to the stands to wait for the event to end. But don't think this'll be a piece of cake. For this year, we have the 2 remaining members of the Big 3 rounding up the second event. At Midnight's sides, 2 platforms rose up, holding the 2 mentioned third years. Each sported the headbands around their legs, arms, wrists, neck, and heads. A round of applause for Mirio Togator and Tamaki Amajiki, everyone. The audience roared in applause as Mirio waved hello and Tamaki saved his hands on his pockets and lowered his head. Too much attention. Mirio Togator and Tamaki Amajiki. Midoriya lowered his eyelids with determination. Lemillion and Sunita. You have to be kidding me. Hatsune grimaced, her eyes widening in sheer disbelief. We'll have to face 2 of the Big 3 just to reach the tournament. And then she smiled. I'm so pumped. Mirio Togator, I think Gran Torino told me he was a potential candidate to get one for all. Melissa smiled with excitement. I guess now's as good time as ever to test if he would have been a better pick than me. And then she noticed something. Wait a minute, Midnight. I only see 7 headbands around Togator's person. Combined with Amajiki's 8, it only adds up to 15. Ah yes, I was hoping to save that revelation for later, but since you pointed it out, Midnight giggled and aimed her whip at Melissa. The first place winner of the obstacle course will wear the 16th and final headband. What? Was all Melissa could utter. Alright, we'll give everyone 15 minutes to prepare, and then we'll begin the free-for-all. Midoriya reunited with the remaining students of Class 1B to form a strategy. Hatsune and Mineta talked about strategy while putting some finishing touches on some gadgets. The general ed students looked at each other before looking elsewhere, and Class 1A hyped themselves up for the upcoming event. And watching them all was Melissa, who stood frozen in the middle of the arena with Mirio and Tamaki. I'm so screwed, Melissa thought as she wrapped her headband. I just wanted to test my strength against the other potential inheritor, but now I'm gonna have to fight for my life just to get to the next round. Oi! Melissa flinched and turned around, meeting Mirio's friendly smile. You look a little nervous, first time doing this. Why yeah, Melissa twiddled her fingers. I had no idea getting first place would give me such an overwhelming position on the second event, so I'm kinda nervous. You don't look like a first year to me, Tamaki blurted. You look old enough to be either a second or third year. Did you hold back a grade? Oh no, I just didn't bother going through the entrance exam when it first happened. I was still focused on my inventions back then, Melissa explained. But now that I'm at UA, I want to know all there is to be a hero, and sir, I'm going to need to go through all 3 years to get a good idea, right? I see. And start. Melissa flinched as Mirio and Tamaki took defensive positions. For about a second before the trio separated, Mirio and Tamaki jumping away, while Melissa flinched forward, narrowly missing a bursting wall of white fire. What's going on? Melissa asked as she turned around and leaned her hand closer to the wall. What's this thing? I wouldn't touch that if I were you. Melissa flinched and turned to face the source of the voice, the white-haired girl from before, who parted her hair to reveal a glowing white horn. Just because the fire's not red or blue doesn't mean it doesn't burn. Wow. ERIHASSAIKAI from General Studies has split the arena into 3, separating MIRIOTOGATA, Tamaki AMAJIKI, and Melissa Shield into their own individual arenas. But will this make getting the headbands easier, or harder? It's definitely easier for me, Shinsu smiled as he turned to Midoriya. Especially since I got the same group as Midoriya. Now, I just need to get close. And as Shinsu sneaked his way towards the Swan Knight, he crouched down, ready to leap into the air. Okay, Midoriya, the arena might have been split into 3, but you got this in the bag. Midoriya eyed Monoma and some of his fellow classmates, including Shiozaki and Kendo. Some of your classmates did make it into the section you're in, and you have a plan. You just need to make sure you don't mess anything up. Midoriya looked down at his boots, and got ready to push the button. I already activated the boots once, and Hatsune said it could go 4 more times before she needed to fix them. And as long as the plan goes smoothly, I should only need to use them once, so. Hey. Midoriya raised an eyebrow, and Tamaki showed a headband to Midoriya. If I give this to you, would you stop muttering? It's scaring me. Oh, right, sorry, it's an old habit of mine. Midoriya grabbed the headband and wrapped it around his head. Now, where was I? Wait, unbelievable folks. Using the power of muttering alone, IZUKUMIDORIYA of Class 1B has already advanced to the next round. What? Midoriya exclaimed as the audience roared in joy. No, wait, I didn't mean to do that. WHO cares. You passed, so go to the stands and watch the rest of the show, please. But, who cares if it was an accident, Midoriya, you passed. Monoma said with a thumbs up. Now go to the stands. But what about the plan? We can improvise from here, Kendo said as she walked up to the boy. You got the headband, so go take a breather. You're gonna need it for the tournament. But, suddenly, Midoriya was grabbed by Kendo's gigantic hand, then promptly thrown towards the stands by the redhead, activating his wings just before he crashed on them. He calmly flew down, landed on the seat, and gave his classmates a thumbs up. Alright, everyone. Monoma narrowed his eyes with determination. Time to improvise. Meanwhile, on Mirio's side of the arena, he sighed and shook his head. Poor Tamaki, peer pressure has always been his biggest weakness. Then, a steel-covered Tetsu jumped out of nowhere and reeled back a fist. I don't think getting scared of muttering counts as peer pressure. Tetsu threw the fist, but as soon as he did, it phased right through Mirio, who turned to look at him with half his arm on his face. What the hell? Mirio promptly responded by throwing a punch that not only connected with Tetsu, but sent him flying straight into a wall, cracking it in the process. Whoops, that hook might have been a little too strong. Mirio said as he waved his hand. Sorry about that, kid. I thought I needed to give it my all since you got steel for skin. Are you okay? I'm okay. Great. Soon after, a smoke bomb dropped next to Mirio's feet, and once he looked at it, he turned towards the direction it was thrown from. Yaoyorozu was there, holding a serious expression on her face. Clever. The bomb blew up, covering Mirio in a smoke cloud. Everyone, now's our chance. Yaoyorozu flew forward into the smoke cloud, followed by a couple of other students, and a couple seconds later they came out, and Yaoyorozu dispelled the smoke cloud by flying up, revealing she was wearing one of the headbands. Alright, got one. Yaoyorozu exclaimed with pride. What about you guys? I'm in. Kaminari chirped, showing the headband on his hand. Me too. Uraraka added, wrapping the headband around her head. Yaoyorozu looked around for any other headbands, but her classmates looked at her and shook their heads with worried frowns. And soon after, Mirio came out of the smoke cloud, clapping slowly and looking at Yaoyorozu with a little smile. I got to admit, that was a neat little trick you pulled out there, totally didn't see it coming. I'm kidding of course, I had a plan ready in case something like that happened, but still, points for trying. Amazing. Momo Yaoyorozu has managed to snatch headbands for herself, Denki Kaminari, and Ochakouraraka, but Miriotogata still has headbands left to be taken. Now, please leave the field and wait until the event's over. Yaoyorozu glared at present Mike, but after processing the fact, she took a deep breath and grabbed Kaminari and Uraraka. I'm sorry everyone, she said before flying off back into the stands, leaving the rest of her classmates to figure out how to get the headbands. As that happened, Melissa's side had Melissa surrounded by a mix between her classmates and Eri, the latter who got up, dusted herself, and ran straight for the blonde inventor. Melissa clenched her fists and prepared to use her arm brace. And then Eri was struck by a sugar-rushed punch from Sato. Ha! Sato! Melissa exclaimed as she deactivated One for All. What are you doing? You're supposed to head for my headband. Perhaps, but you're the strongest student in Class 1A by far. The man replied, clenching his fist as he flashed a little smile. If there's anybody who can win this festival, it's you. Sato has a point, Sero stated as he prepared to shoot his tape. Considering someone from Class 1A will go to the next round regardless of whether we take your headband or not, we should make sure you advance. With that, the rest of the 1A students got ready to stand by Melissa's side, and though she didn't lower her guard, she flashed a little, relieved smile as she clenched her arm brace and prepared to fight back. Guys, I'm so glad I have you on my side. Mina rolled on the ground and stopped just short of hitting the fire wall. She promptly stood up and lunged at Mirio once again, phasing right through him and crash landing on the floor. Dang it, he keeps becoming intageable. Mina snapped as she stood up. If only there was a way to stop him from doing that. Pinky. Mina turned around, and saw both Bakugo and Kirishima approaching her, the former with his hands on his pockets while the latter looked rather upset. Oh hey, Bakugo, Kirishima, I'm so glad you both are still here. Mina said as she approached the guys. Congratulations on that speech at the start of the festival, Bakugo. I'm really impressed with how you managed to avoid feeding your own ego. Mina extended a hand forward, but Bakugo slapped it away. I heard what you did to Sharpshooter. Sharpshooter. Was Bakugo talking about Hatsune? Well, they did meet before when she snitched on her with him, but besides that, she never thought Bakugo and Hatsune would meet eye to eye. Hell, she never thought he'd actually bother to give her a nickname. Perhaps I did something to Hatsune, Mina said, waving her hand. What about it? Listen, just because everyone knows you're an asshole doesn't mean you can just freely do dick moves like that. Bakugo narrowed his eyes, and Mina could only hope he realized how hypocritical that statement was. Remember how I said I would beat the shit out of you if you got out of line? You're coming dangerously close to that line. It's cute how you keep spouting empty threats like they had any meaning, Mina giggled with a hint of malice. I can't wait to hear you boasting and hissing when you get kicked out. At least you can rest easy knowing you're on the path to becoming a true hero. Bakugo gritted his teeth and growled. Kirishima, you still have to prove your worth as a true hero, or manliness, as you keep saying. Mina raised an eyebrow and smirked. Facing off against one of the big three sounds quite manly, don't you think? We've already seen you phase through him, though, Kirishima pointed out. We won't be able to get any headbands if we just straight up rush him. Mina lowered her eyelids. Well, I got a plan for that. And as the trio talked about the plan, Mirio watched them with folded arms and a tilted head. They're actually thinking up a strategy now, huh? That's definitely a step up. Suddenly, he heard someone running up to him, and once he turned, he saw the steel-skinned Tetsu doing just that. He wasn't very impressed. Definitely more of a step up than this guy. Then he heard another scream, and he saw Kirishima, Bakugo, and Mina rushing towards him, the former two hardening his skin and creating firecrackers respectively. Okay, never mind, maybe they still got a few ways to go. Mirio got ready to attack, but without warning, Mina grabbed Bakugo's hand and launched him straight for Mirio. He prepared to block the attack, but Bakugo simply aimed his palms forward and unleashed an explosion big enough to cover Mirio in the same old smoke cloud trick. This was followed by him, Kirishima, Mina, and Tetsu all rushing in. Bakugo blew up the smoke cloud soon after, sending Mirio towards the wall, though the guy himself was barely bruised. However, he did notice one peculiar thing about the quartet. They all had headbands around their heads. Nice, Mirio said with a smile. And in the blink of an eye, Katsuki Bakugo, Mina Ashido, Eijirokirishima, and Tetsutetsu have advanced to the next round. And this effectively leaves Mirio without headbands. Only Tamaki Amajiki and Melissa Shield remain. Tamaki heard that, and he shivered as he looked back at the students at his side, Class 1B and the support corps students. Also a Gen Ed student looking like he really needed to sleep. Then he looked at himself. He had just enough headbands for 7 more students. This was too much. Too much. Hey, something wrong. Huh. Before he could say anything else, Tamaki's eyes went completely white and he stood dazed, while Shinsu walked up to him with his hands on his pockets. Well, my plan with Midoriya might have gone up in smoke, but at least I can still get an easy win with you, Shinsu sighed. When I snap my fingers, you'll take off one of your headbands and give it to me. Shinsu snapped his fingers, and Tamaki did as he told him. he took off one of his headbands, and presented it to Shinsu, who said, "Thank you," as he reached for it. Just before he grabbed the headband, however, a pink blur flashed by and snatched it instead. "Thanks for the headband, sucker." Shinsu turned to the spot the blur went to, and he saw a grinning Hatsume looking smugly at him as she wrapped the headband on her head. "Oh, looks like May Hatsume has snatched the headband Hitoshinshinsou was grabbing. That means she goes to the next round, and Shinsou has one less chance to advance. Ugh, that freaking girl." Shinsu snapped his fingers. "Quick, give me another headband." Tamaki took off another headband, but just as Shinsu grabbed it, a purple blur snatched it. He turned to the blur, and this time it was Mineta who had taken and wrapped the headband around his head. "Thanks for that. Oh come on." And Minoru Mineta goes to the next round too. "That's another chance lost. Tell me something I don't know." Shinsu snapped, then turned back to Tamaki before snatching one of the headbands. "Just give me the headband and turn back to normal." "About time, kiddo." Hitoshinshinsou goes to the next round. Shinsu growled, and once Tamaki turned back to normal, he turned to him and said, "I'm sorry," with a sincere tone. Shortly after that, Hatsume's gadget sent her flying back to the stands, but she didn't land back with support, rather, she landed right on top of Midoriya's lap. Hatsume," he exclaimed, blushing wildly. "Why did you land here? Weird. I'm sure I adjusted it to send me back to the support stands." Hatsume scratched her chin and turned to her side. "Mineta, did your gadget suffer the same issue?" The boy promptly crash-landed, right into Yanagi's bust. "Yeah. Hey, look at the bright side, at least you didn't crash-land into Shiozaki's chest," Tokage smirked with a giggle. "Poor guy would have broken his nose once he got a faceful of that chopping board." "I heard that, Tokage." Everybody turned around, and saw Shiozaki, Kendo, and Monoma standing on top of a large plant platform, though oddly enough, only Kendo and Shiozaki had headbands. "Oh come on, Shiozaki, you know I'm just joking." The lizard girl laughed. "It was just some friendly ribbing." Shiozaki growled and walked past Tokage, slapping her in the process as she and her classmates took their seats. "Hey, Monoma, where's your headband?" Midoriya asked, raising an eyebrow. "The ones that needed to go to advance were you, Kendo, Shiozaki, and Tetsu," the copycat responded. "As long as you four reached the tournament, I don't need a headband." "You'd get kicked out as soon as your match started, anyway," Hatsume pointed out. "Unfortunately, I agree with you. And time's up." The walls of white fire dispersed, revealing both Mirio and Tamaki with no headbands left, and Melissa still having her headband tied around her head. And, having kept her headband the entire event, the final student to advance to the tournament is Melissa Shield. The audience cheered as Melissa's surprised stare slowly morphed into a joyful smile. "Congratulations, Melissa," Yaoyorozu exclaimed from the stands. "You did great," Midoriya corroborated. Melissa kept glancing between everybody as more congratulations flew towards her, until she turned to her fellow Class 1A classmates, mostly Sato and Sero. "Thanks, all of you," she said. "I don't think I would have lasted that long without you." And then she turned back to see Eri, down on her knees and catching her breath while sporting a mix between an angry and forlorn expression. She approached the exhausted white-haired girl, and offered her hand. "Oh, and you did good too. That was pretty smart move, splitting the arena into three." Eri gasped and looked angrily at the hand, before she looked up at Melissa's reassuring, sincere smile. Eri frowned for a second, before she forced a smile and accepted the offer. Thanks," she said as she stood up. "I didn't expect it to work." Eri separated from Melissa and walked back to the stands, waiting until she had her back turned against Melissa before gritting her teeth and furrowing her brows, growling all the while. Melissa, for her part, tilted her head and put her finger on her cheek, before she joined the rest of her classmates at the stands. "We'll take a short break to prepare the arena, everyone. And once we return, we'll begin what everyone's been waiting for. Ciao." That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.